For years, whenever I told someone I work in animation, the reaction was very predictable. Oh, cartoons, that must be fun. And I would smile and say, yes, it is fun. But what I held back and what I didn't say was, it's also economic architecture, it's workforce development, it's cultural diplomacy. But then I would say, just to make a lighter moment, occasionally it's also a dancing pink elephant. And they would all laugh. And that reaction always fascinated me because we instinctively take seriously what looks serious: steel, concrete, wood. But we often underestimate what looks playful. So, whenever storytelling is being discussed, society asks us the same question, you know, why? Why animation? Why invest in animation? Why invest in original stories? Why culture? Why take the risk? But what if why is the wrong starting point? What if progress begins beyond why? You know, so we always talk about infrastructure. When a nation builds highways, no one asks why roads are needed. When it invests in broadband, no one asks why the internet, right? Without that, Instagram won't work. So we understand infrastructure. Infrastructure enables movement, right? Physical infrastructure moves goods, digital infrastructure moves data. But narrative infrastructure moves something far more powerful. It moves our identity forward. And that identity moves influence. The uncomfortable truth is, in the 21st century, storytelling is not decoration, right? It is infrastructure. It is cultural infrastructure. And this is what one needs to really understand, that it's our cultural infrastructure. You know? So let me take you back. 2 decades ago, once the animation industry started bustling, it was growing, it was going very strongly. And as a country, we were a strong service partner. We delivered global projects, we met deadlines, we executed efficiently. We were the back end of someone else's imagination. We were reliable, cost effective, but invisible. One day, I was watching children passionately discussing characters from another country. They knew the catchphrases, the backstories, the villains, the heroes. And I was thinking, where are our stories in this room? Why are children of our country not talking about our stories? And that sort of stayed with me. And then years later, we decided to do something about it. We created Krish, Trish, and Balti Boy. Three amazing characters who are fun, who travel through India's cultural and historical landscape. I witnessed something I will never forget. One of the very first movie screenings. So we organized a school screening, you know, small room, noisy, children are talking, fidgeting, restless. You know how children are, right? They can't sit idle. So once the lights dimmed, within minutes, the room changed. You know, they leaned forward, right? They laughed in the right places, they gasped in the right places. And when the credits rolled, one small boy walked up to me, still having his popcorn, and said, "Sir, I didn't know our stories could look like this." I was like, wow. He didn't say this was cool, this was fun. But what he said, "I didn't know our stories could look like this." That sentence was small, but in my mind, it created a very seismic shift. In that moment, I realized something profound. When a child sees their culture rendered with scale, color, adventure, they don't just passively consume it, they claim it, right? Because imagination had shifted from borrowed to owned. When we proposed, therefore, moving forward, building more original IP, again, the same challenge. The response was spontaneous. Why? Service model was working, revenue was predictable, risk was minimal. Why disrupt the comfortable situation? And that's when I realized something important. Why protect stability? It makes us sometimes too comfortable to a point that it promotes stagnation. And moving beyond why means moving from regular revenue, stable invoices to creating something even bigger, intellectual property. Yes, services generate income, but IP generates leverage. If you build roads for others, sure, you will collect tolls. But if you build a destination, others will travel to you. That shift is profound. But it's not artistic ego. It's not about artistic ego. It's about an economic evolution. So, when we talk about culture, I believe that culture needs to be reimagined, not preserved, not locked away. And that's when I faced another why. Why modernize culture, right? Why reinterpret tradition? Why not preserve it as it is in its original pristine state? Many times we have a very romantic idea of preservation. We imagine culture preserved in glass boxes, nice glass boxes, locked away in museums. But preservation without adaptation leads to irrelevance. Culture does not survive because it is frozen. It survives because it evolves. It survives because it has to be propagated, right? Civilizations that endure are not that archive their past and lock it away. There are those that interpret it for the present. So we did something, more interesting. We said, okay, let's go continue on this journey. And we created Bharat Hai Hum, telling the stories of unsung heroes of Indian freedom movement, using animation. And again, the same resistance. Why? Will children really connect to this? And again, what we like to do is obviously share our content, see how kids respond to it. So I remember the very first screening, I was sitting in the last row during one of our early screenings. It wasn't a glamorous premiere, no red carpet moment. It was a small, modest auditorium, plastic chairs. There was a slight echo in the sound, but it didn't matter. I was more curious to see how children are responding. The room was full of children, energetic, distracted, whispering to one another. And I remember thinking, this is the real test. Within minutes, that room fell silent. Not because a teacher asked them to be quiet, but because they were deeply engrossed in the story. At one point, and this is a moment that was really big for me. During an emotional scene about a young freedom fighter who dies, I saw a child, gently wiping away his tears and hiding it. He was almost embarrassed to be seen, feeling, and emoting. And after that screening, another girl came up, raised her hand, and asked, why don't we know these heroes like we know our superheroes? That's the power of that young mind asking very, very simple but profound question. And that landed very, very heavily. Because it wasn't about information. It wasn't about recognition. It was not about, oh, what a great show we've made. No. I think in that moment, we understood that if we do not animate our history, if we do not tell our history in a vivid manner, it's not just about it disappearing. It simply will get overshadowed, get lost, and then we will get into sort of an act of restoration. No, it's not about that. When folk art enters an animated frame, it is not diluted, it is extended. That experience is amplified. When oral histories become episodic storytelling, they are not simplified, they become shareable, right? We are in a moment where we like to share things, right? When historical memory becomes immersive experience, right? It's not trivialized, it becomes lived. Young audiences are not disconnected from heritage, and this is what we need to understand. The disconnection, they're not disconnected from formats that speak their language, right? They're not disconnected from formats that don't speak their language, rather. If a generation lives on interactive screens, you cannot reach them through static medium, to static nostalgia. And I think often people look at technology as an enemy, but actually it's different. Technology is the bridge, right? So when you look at technology, animation, gaming, immersive storytelling, these are not replacements for culture. They are transmission systems. And transmission determines survival. Moving beyond why preserve to how do we reimagine? And that is strategic civilizational thinking. You know. So, moving on, when we explored stories of lesser known heroes of Indian freedom struggle, I was born. Children won't sit through their history. History is boring. I thought, have you met children? Have you ever spent time with them? They will sit through 6 seasons of dragons, time travel, and multiverses. The issue is not attention span. The issue is, can you truly engage them? Right? So when Krishnan Baltiboy Bharate Hum, history did not feel like an instruction. It was not a history lesson. It felt like an adventure. And then something unexpected happened. Once people started consuming this content, parents began to write to us, not about ratings, but it was about interesting dinner table conversations. One parent wrote, my son asked me who Rani Abbaka Devi was, not because of homework, but because he wanted to know more. And that curiosity was not forced, it was voluntary. And voluntary curiosity is very, very powerful, right? Because you are igniting a young mind. That is when you realize storytelling is not something that remains in textbook alone. It cannot. It makes memory personal. History does not remain confined to classrooms, right? Folklore need not remain regional. Mythology need not remain static. When animated responsibly and imaginatively, they become accessible. And that accessibility builds influence. For me, storytelling is as crucial as infrastructure. Every nation exports something, right? Some export oil, some export technology, some export finance, some export diamonds. The most influential nations export stories. Stories shape aspirations, stories shape identity, stories shape how the world sees you. When a child in another country grows up with your characters, your mythology, your worldview, you are shaping the cultural memory of the future. That is not accidental. Japan did not become an animation powerhouse by chance, right? Anime is everywhere today. United States did not build global character franchises by coincidence. And neither South Korea did not become a cultural exporter overnight. They built ecosystems, education, policy, distribution, IP protection mechanisms, investment capital. That is infrastructure. Infrastructure for creativity, infrastructure for storytelling. And they treated this as a strategy. You know, I believe animation is like soft power. And soft power is usually discussed in diplomatic circles. But culture is its most virulent form. When content travels globally across languages and platforms, it does more than entertain. It normalizes worldview. It builds empathy. It fosters curiosity. Soft power is not built through declarations. It's not built through speeches. It's built through belonging, right? You don't announce it, you animate it. Moving beyond why animation to understanding, this is influence. And that is the strategic maturity that we need, right? That is the strategic maturity that we need today and now. So, let's move beyond why, right? Let me leave you with a different image. Long after we are gone, long after today's debate fades, right? Long after today's technology becomes obsolete, what will remain? Not our quarterly numbers, not our balance sheets, not our trending hashtags, not even our policy documents. What will remain are stories. The stories a child watched before sleeping, the heroes they chose to admire, the world that shaped their sense of possibility. Empires collapse, markets fluctuate, algorithms change, but stories travel, stories prevail. They slip across borders quietly, they enter homes without visas, they live in memory without permission, and sometimes they outlive the civilization that created them. We are living in an extraordinary moment. For the first time in history, imagination is scalable. A teenager with a laptop can build a universe. A small studio can reach a global audience. A voice once considered regional can resonate worldwide. Creation has become democratized. Courage still has not. Many young creators still whisper the old question: is this practical? Is this safe? Is this serious? That is the language of fear. That is the language of why. But history does not remember those who ask why, it remembers those who move beyond why. To the young creators here tonight, your culture is not fragile. It does not need to be stored in glass boxes. It does not need to be caged in museums. It needs to be celebrated. If your grandmother's folk story sounds cinematic, animated, make a game. If your village feels like an enchanted land, build an immersive universe out of it. If your history feels forgotten, do something, resurrect it. Because when you tell your stories, you are not just creating content, you are shaping memory, you're shaping confidence, you're shaping how a generation will see itself and how the world will see them. Nation building today is not done in parliaments, it's done in writers' rooms. Please understand this. It's done in writers' rooms, in animation pipelines, in gaming engines, in immersive worlds, which are still being imagined. The next era of influence will not belong only to those who control resources, it will belong to those who control narrative. And narrative is being built by those brave enough to go beyond why. When someone asks you why animation, why storytelling, why take that part, don't argue, don't defend, smile. Because you know something they don't. Future will not be shaped only by engineers of code. It will be shaped by engineers of imagination. So build worlds, build characters, build stories that travel further than you ever will. And finally, not why. Beyond why lies ownership. Beyond why lies identity. Beyond why lies imagination as infrastructure. And beyond why lies legacy. Your legacy. Thank you so much.